This next story comes from CNN. A leading House Democrat sues Donald Trump under a post-Civil War law for conspiracy. Post-Civil War law is being now used as a lawsuit, a civil lawsuit against Donald Trump. So we've got this Democrat who goes by the name of Bennie Thompson. He's over from Mississippi. He was not happy with what happened in the impeachment proceedings. For a long time, many people were saying that, well, there's this January exception. There's nothing you can do if Donald Trump is not impeached and convicted and removed and prevented from running again. He's going to get away with a January exception. There's no repercussions for him. Even though we have an entire Department of Justice that could file criminal charges in that situation. I also made the point that somebody could sue him. Somebody could just say, all right, we're just going to sue you for damages. We just don't like what you did, and we're going to file a lawsuit. Well, lo and behold, a couple days go by. Here we are. We have a House Democrat, a congressperson by the name of Bennie Thompson, who is suing Donald Trump. This article, as I said, comes from CNN. Former President Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani are being accused of conspiring with far-right groups, Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, to incite the January 6th insurrection in a new civil lawsuit that was filed Tuesday in federal court by the Democratic chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. The suit cites a post-Civil War law designed to combat violence and intimidation by the Kkk, the Ku Klux Klan. The lawsuit filed by Mississippi Democratic Rep. Bennie Thompson in his personal capacity, so not as a congressperson, is the first civil action filed against the former president related to the attack at the US Capitol and comes days after the Senate acquitted Trump in his impeachment trial. If it proceeds, it would mean the former president and others would be subject to discovery and depositions, potentially exposing details and evidence that weren't released during the Senate impeachment trial. So we'll see if that happens. I highly doubt that it will. So let's take a look at the lawsuit. We have a couple slides of background here. Thompson points to Trump's words and tweets in the months leading up, just like they did during the impeachment proceeding. They're citing a scarcely used federal statute passed after the Civil War that was intended to combat violence from the KKK. It allows civil actions to be brought against people who, quote, use force, intimidation, or threat to prevent anyone from upholding the duties of their office, which is interesting. Very obscure, never heard of it. Several members of these far-right groups have been charged for their involvement in the riot. Justice Department has charged more than a dozen Proud Boys. DOJ indicted 3 members of the Oath Keepers. The lawsuit has been randomly assigned to Judge Amit Mehta, an appointee of former President Obama. He has handled various lawsuits related to Trump's financial records. In 2019, he ruled that Trump's financial firm Mazars USA had to turn over records to Congress. He also earlier denied a request from House Democrats in the minority at the time attempting to get Trump hotel records from the General Services Administration. And one more little background. This is the Kkk Statute. It was specifically meant to provide federal civil remedies for federal officers who were prevented from performing their duties by 2 or more individuals, whether federal marshals in the post-Civil War South, federal judges in the reconstructed lower courts, or federal legislators, says the University of Texas law professor and Supreme Court analyst Stephen Vladek. All right, so let's get into the lawsuit. So here's what it looks like. It is in the District of Columbia, so in the D.C. Circuit, Federal Circuit Court. We've got Bennie Thompson in his personal capacity, citing his U.S. House of Representatives address, suing Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, suing the Proud Boys, and suing the Oath Keepers, all of them in one civil complaint. They're requesting a jury trial. Filed today, February 16th, so let's go through it briefly. On or before January 6th, Trump, Giuliani, Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, all of them, they conspired to incite. So see how that language is a little bit different. So rather than incited insurrection, they're saying conspired to incite. They're going to define what that is later on. It assembled a crowd, marched upon the crowd, violated the Electoral College, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we've all got all that. We have here, plaintiff, the person who's filing the lawsuit, brings this action for conspiring to prevent him and other members of Congress from discharging their official duties. Apparently, there's this code that was passed in 1871, the Ku Klux Klan Act, that is under Title 42 U.S. Code 1985. Intended to protect against conspiracies through violence and intimidation, sought to prevent members of Congress from discharging their official duties. The statute was enacted in response to violence and intimidation in which the KKK and other organizations engaged during the time. Here, they're saying the defendants did all of that. So Trump, Giuliani, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, they conspired to prevent, by force, by intimidation, a member of Congress, that would have been Bennie Thompson, from discharging his official duties to approve the count of the votes cast by the members of the Electoral College. Interesting. Very interesting little lawsuit we have here. So now they're saying that sort of in their government capacity, they were Trump was in his governmental capacity, but Giuliani was not. Of course, the Oath Keepers were not. Neither were the Proud Boys. So I guess the allegation here is that Trump was conspiring with these non-organizational groups in order to interfere with the counting of the electoral votes. Bennie Thompson is a congressperson. He was supposed to be there that day. I'm sure he was. And he was in Congress, should have been doing his official duties. But of course, this Capitol Hill, riot took place, and he was precluded from doing that for a certain period of time. Then they got back in session by the end of the night. The vote was counted early the next morning. And so it was I would say very temporary interference, but a significant one. It was a big deal. And he's upset about that. So now he's suing. He's citing this 1871 law that says he can go file a claim against the people who were responsible for that interference. Interesting argument. Paragraph number 4. In furtherance of this common goal of preventing the timely approval of the Electoral College vote count, the defendants acted in concert to incite and then carry out a riot at the Capitol by, how'd they do it? By promoting an assembly of persons to engage in tumultuous and violent conduct or the threat of it that created grave danger to the plaintiff and to members of Congress. This conduct jointly undertaken to threaten, the insurrection was a direct, intended, and foreseeable result of the defendants' unlawful conspiracy, instigated through a common plan that the defendants pursued through their Save America rally. Trump and Giuliani invited a ton of people. There was a unified plan to prevent the counting of the Electoral College votes. Carefully orchestrated series of events that unfolded at the Save America rally. It goes on. Basically, all of this stuff was intended and foreseeable. So foreseeability, this is actually not a bad suit because of foreseeability. They're talking about causation. I just got a notice from Faith that it stopped. All right, so we're going to get right back into it. I'm not sure what's going on, but we're going to wrap up the show. We'll upload it later if need be. So let's get back. Apologies on that, folks. All right, so let's get back into it. The lawsuit that we're going through, while not all of the defendants in this action were physically present at the Capitol during the attack on the plaintiff, the events occurred were the natural, foreseeable, and intended consequence of the defendants' coordinated campaign to use intimidation, harassment, and threats in an attempt to prevent Congress from discharging its duties. So we've got some good causation going on here. Right? Foreseeable intended consequences. This is civil law type of causation, which we really didn't see in the underlying impeachment proceedings. Remember, we talked about this a lot. We were going through all of the different sort of tactics that I would be using if I were a prosecutor prosecuting this crime and, allegedly this crime that Donald Trump committed. And there was no causation. They were just talking a lot about the damage that was happening on the Capitol. They were just saying that, it was horrendous. The whole thing was a nightmare. Yes, we got it. We know that. But the question is, did Donald Trump cause it? So here in this lawsuit, they're making up a much better case, I think, for causation. And we'll see if that sticks or not. So the parties, as we can see here, are the Bennie Thompson, who is the duly elected representative of the 2nd Congressional District of Mississippi. Thompson was there to present the Capitol in order to discharge his legally required duty to observe. So he was harmed because he was this congressperson. He was prevented from being able to go in and participate in the counting of the electoral votes, and he's saying he was harmed. The defendant here is Donald Trump. He's the president. Giuliani was a confidant of the defendant. And the Proud Boys were, we all know who they are. We also know who the Oath Keepers are. So they're naming them as defendants. Now, this is where you get to the cause of action. And so they're saying specifically that the Ku Klux Klan Act, 42 U.S. Code 1985, says that defendants, quote, may not conspire to prevent by force, intimidation, or threat any person holding office under the United States. And Trump, Giuliani, Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers, they were all responsible for interfering in that performance of those duties. And then we're going to get to what they're asking for. All right, so what does Bennie Thompson want? What does he want to get out of this? Why is he suing Trump? Does he want money out of this? What does he want? Well, the activities here were to prevent Thompson from being able to perform his constitutional duty. The acts set out, and they say that he was hindered and impeded in his official discharge of duties. He seeks an award of compensatory damages. During the time when the Capitol was under attack, he also suffered emotional distress, so he needs compensation for that damage. as the unlawful actions taken by the defendants were malicious and in reckless disregard of federally protected rights. He wants an award of punitive damages, too, to punish the defendants for engaging in a concerted and continuing course of unlawful conduct. Here at the end, he says, I want declaratory judgment that the actions described herein constitute a violation of the U.S. Code. I want injunctive relief that enjoins the defendants from engaging in future violations of 42 U.S. Code. I want compensatory damages, punitive damages. I want attorney's fees and any other remedy that the court thinks is just. This was signed off on by the NAACP. We got Cohen, Milstein, Sellers, and Toll. We got Joseph Sellers signing off on it, and Jeanette Luard. All right. And so that's the lawsuit. So Bennie Thompson, now another Democrat, is suing President Trump. We'll see where that goes. Honestly, I don't think that this is going to go anywhere. I think that the courts are probably just going to get rid of this stuff, but it looks good politically. And the reason I say that is because even though he's doing his best to make the claim that there was a conspiracy here, not sure that you can prove that. Not sure that you can prove that Donald Trump was a part of it. You might be able to prove the Proud Boys had a conspiracy or that the Oath Keepers had a conspiracy, but did Donald Trump have a conspiracy with them to cause this damage? I mean, that's kind of a big claim here. More so than just going out there and giving political speeches. Okay, if you got to just think about where you draw this line. If you're anti-Donald Trump, and you may say, well, he deserves it, right? This is something that's so egregious. But just ask yourself where that line is being drawn. If any politician in this country, just by saying something, by taking a political stand against something, and somebody does something bad as a result of that, are you in a conspiracy with them? No, right? I mean, just logically, no. Okay, every time Joe Biden comes out there and says something, and somebody who is a part of Antifa, does something bad, and they say, "Well, Joe Biden was the one who caused me to do it." Was Joe Biden in a conspiracy with that person? Of course not. That's stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all. So I think that this is just kind of a political tool that Bennie Thompson is using right now. There's a lot of impeachment, second acquittal hangover going on, and people are trying to figure out how to cope with that. So Bennie Thompson is doing what he can to continue that ball. Nancy Pelosi is doing the same thing too with her new commission that she wants to start. Everybody's just continuing to sort of dig their heels in on some of this post-impeachment stuff. So that's it for Bennie Thompson.